Hi guys, good evening and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie. I hope you're all having a wonderful holiday weekend and you're staying safe and above all staying cool. It is hot out there. I wanted to welcome you back to the EdWord for another film review, where in tonight's video I'll be discussing the latest horror movie to grace the big screens, which came out a few days ago. I had a chance to watch it earlier today, thoroughly enjoyed it. MaXXXine, the last and final chapter in the X trilogy that technically began with X 2 years ago, and then a few months later, Pearl came out, which was the prequel to X, so the order is Pearl, X, MaXXXine, all following the same young woman. Well, I mean, Mia Goth stars in all three films, but, her character, MaXXXine, takes center stage in X and MaXXXine. And this movie sees her story come full circle. So before I get into all of that, of course, please be warned, this is a spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't seen MaXXXine yet and you plan to watch at some point this weekend, you don't want to keep watching or listening to this video, as I will be discussing spoilers, plot details, character stuff, all that jazz. That being said, you have been warned. Let's dive right back into it. First and foremost, I think my favorite death in this movie, and it wasn't even at the hands of the mysterious murderer. It was MaXXXine, her agent, and her friend, who I guess ran the junkyard, or he worked with her at the strip club but had access to a junkyard, when they crushed Kevin Bacon's character to death, the sleazy private investigator who was working for the mysterious murderer. That was a really satisfying death scene for a really icky character. I do love Kevin Bacon, though. He's awesome, and he plays such a great bad guy, and he was outstanding in this role in this movie. So I really enjoyed watching him get crushed to death in that junkyard scene. And it also played on what the director said to MaXXXine in a few scenes leading up to this: whatever your problems are, squash them. And that's literally what she did. She squashed her problems, or at least a part of her problems, because she still had the murderer to deal with. So I loved that. I kind of had wished or had hoped we'd see a bit more. This is going to sound strange, but I kind of wish we had seen a bit more actual mysterious murderer stalking and killing people important and close to MaXXXine. Like, we saw her friend, the porn video store guy, get slashed and diced. And then a couple of girls whom she knew were taken up to that mansion where the mysterious murderer and his accomplices branded and murdered them. But I would have preferred to see, like, a perfect recent example. Thanksgiving, the horror movie Thanksgiving. We saw that masked murderer kill multiple people throughout the course of that movie. And we didn't really see a whole lot of that in this film, which is what the trailer kind of led us to believe. But I guess it really was more about MaXXXine and what was happening to and around her than it was the actual murderer. But I personally would have preferred to see a bit more slasher style approach taken to this movie, since that's what it was advertised as. But we can't always get what we want. So I still enjoyed it very much. I'm pleased that the murderer turned out to be her father and not her agent or any of the other main supporting characters. I knew it wasn't Kevin Bacon because obviously we saw the murderer get into the car with Kevin Bacon. It was a real stretch that it was going to be Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. I think it was set to the backdrop of the Night Stalker killings, but that was just a red herring and nothing ever came of it. So I am pleased that the murderer turned out to be another antagonist from the previous film, which was her religious nut job of a father who only wanted the best for his little girl, but was a zealot and had to be stopped. And it was so satisfying to watch MaXXXine blow his brains out, putting an end to him once and for all. There may not have been a whole lot of scenes with the murderer killing people, but there were some very memorable, very cool deaths in this movie. Kevin Bacon getting crushed, the murderer getting his head blown off. Oh God, it wasn't a death scene, but MaXXXine stomping on the testicles of her would-be rapist so satisfying to watch. MaXXXine is not one to be fucked with, and I love not once during this movie did she fall into, the stereotypical, oh, the damsel in distress. Like, no, she was a goddamn boss from beginning to end. She was temporarily detained, but got herself out of it and took care of herself like she always has. And I respect and admire that about her. I love that it was set to the backdrop of 1985 LA. Excellent soundtrack. I'm going to have to look up this soundtrack online because that had some killer 1980s songs scattered throughout this entire film. I also love the filming locales. I have been to and visited both Universal Studios and Warner Brothers, where they filmed a majority of the movie filming scenes throughout this film. I love seeing the ghost of the old woman Pearl up in the window of the mother's room of the Psycho house on the Universal lot. That was pretty cool. I just enjoyed seeing all of these familiar locations in and around LA, especially the movie studios where a majority of the filming action took place. So that was pretty cool to me. I really enjoyed that. I liked this movie's locale and especially the era it was set in, and the music was especially nice too. I wasn't expecting such a real cool shootout between the two cops that were trailing her and her father's zealot followers. It was very reminiscent of almost of a 1980s action movie, but that was probably intended as an homage by the writer and director Ty West, who is probably a fan of obviously not only 1980s horror movies, but 1980s action movies as well. Because I thought, boy, there's a lot of guns and shooting for a horror movie in this, but I wasn't complaining because it kept me interested and engaged. And everybody did a great job in their respective roles. Giancarlo Esposito as the well-meaning and enthusiastic agent. Kevin Bacon as the sleazy private detective. Elizabeth Debicki as the awesome female director who wasn't taking shit from nobody. And of course, Mia Goth as MaXXXine, a powerhouse as always. And I also like the girl who had to make the model cast of her face. I mean, it was unfortunate to watch her have that panic attack as she was remembering the events from the movie X. But it was, I liked that character a lot as well. So, excellent job by everybody involved. Thoroughly entertaining film. This might be my favorite of the whole X trilogy. I did enjoy X a lot, but damn, MaXXXine was a lot of fun to watch and also very, very satisfying. Could have used a bit more masked murderer killing people scenes, but I'm grateful we got what we got with it. And the rest of the movie was still interesting and engaging enough to keep my interest despite the lack of a masked murderer killing people individually and privately. The horror vibe was very much still there. The ending may have felt like a bit of an action movie, but this is definitely a horror thriller film, and I enjoyed it a lot. So what did you guys think of MaXXXine? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you expecting more, expecting less? Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. Have a wonderful rest of your night and weekend if I don't see you. MaXXXine is now playing in theaters. Check local listings for times. There is no post-credit scene at the end of this film, just a great 1980s backdrop. Have an awesome rest of your night, everyone. Thanks again for stopping by, and of course, until next time, what's your favorite scary movie?